Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be showing you how to connect two routers together using a network cable. And basically what it's going to do is take your home router or any router you want and extend that router by adding a second basic router. So I'm going to be using a Netgear as my home router and the TP-Link WR841N as the actual extension. And what this will do is actually connect the two routers together with a LAN cable or a network cable and allow me to share the internet from router 1 to router 2. And I will also show you how to configure the wireless interfaces interface on the second router to not interfere with the wireless interface on the first router. So let's get at it. Here's a diagram of what our network's going to look like, or what my network's going to look like here. And the main router is the Netgear over here. It's basically the home router, and it's connected to the internet through a cable modem, internet modem, and it's a Wi-Fi router. And we're going to connect it using a LAN cable like this to another router, which is the TP-Link WR841N. That'll be the secondary router. But just so you know, this could be any two routers you want to put together, okay? So it doesn't have to be a Netgear, and it doesn't have to be a TP-Link WR841N. It could just be any two routers. As long as you go and set them up the way I tell you to set them up, you should be fine. Now, first thing you need to find out in this configuration is what the main router's IP address is. And that's something we can do inside Windows. So let's minimize this out of the way here. And if you're connected to the router, you have a network if you're connected to the main router, you'll have a network icon down here, and it will be either a Wi-Fi symbol or a LAN cable, depending on what you got connected. What we're going to do is right-click that and go to Open Network and Sharing Center. Once that's open, we're going to go to Change Adapter Settings. And here you'll see, well, I got 3 connections. You may have a different amount. But one of them is the Ethernet and the other one is Wi-Fi. Well, I'm connected to the router through Wi-Fi, so we're going to deal with that connection. If you're connected through Ethernet, then there won't be a red X there. And basically all you need to do is exactly the same thing I'm going to do with Wi-Fi, just on that connection. So let's go to Wi-Fi, right-click it, choose Status. And this gives you your status of your connection. But what we want to go to is Details here. And in the details, you'll see all your IP information. And the important part here is the IPv4 default gateway, DHCP server, and DNS server. You'll notice here on mine that they're all the same number. That's because the router is taking care of those functions. And that's how you know what the router's IP address is. In my case, it's 192.168.1.1. So if yours is different, like say 192.168.0.1 or anything else, just write it down and I'll tell you how to deal with it or handle it in a second. But in my case, it's 1.1. So 192.168.1.1. So let's close that up. And now that we have the IP address of the main router, we can move on to the next thing that we need to do. And the next thing we're going to need to do is to, oops, this is not it. Next thing we're going to need to do is log into that router at 192.168.1.1, and we're going to do that using a browser. I'm using Firefox. You can use whatever you'd like. And in Firefox, we're going to go to the address bar and we're going to put that IP address in, 192.168.1.1, which is where my main router is. So we're going to hit enter on that, and it's going to ask me for a username and password. In my case, I'm using a Netgear, and the default password on that will be admin for the username and password for the password. If you have a different router, it'll be a different default username and password, or it'll be whatever you set it to when you first set it up. I don't know what that is. You probably do. And if you don't know what your default username and password for your router is, just Google it. You're bound to find it there. Just Google default password for whatever type of router you have, and it'll give it to you. Other than that, I'd say go to your documentation and look there. So here we're going to do exactly that. We're going to put it admin, and then we're going to go to password. We're going to put password. And I strongly suggest that you change these default passwords for security purposes, but I'm just using the defaults here. Yeah, sure. There. Typed it in right, works. And here we go into the Netgear interface. Now, Netgear has two interfaces. It has the new interface, which is what you're looking at here. It's called Netgear Genie, and it has the old firmware. If you're running the old firmware, you'll see something like this. Basically, it's let's see if we can get back to it. Yeah, here we go. It'll look like this. It's kind of a menu-driven thing, but I'll show you how to set this up on both of the Netgear firmwares. And then I'll show you the difference between the Netgear and TP-Link and probably many other routers. Okay, so let's go here, back to our router here. And we're logged in at 192.168.1.1. We're going to go to the Advanced tab here. And just so you know, I'll show you on the regular Netgear and I'll show you on the TP-Link. And then if yours is different, you'll need to find where these settings are. So I've gone to Advanced. Here we're going to go to Setup. Then we're going to go to LAN Setup. And in LAN Setup, you'll see all of your IP address information. And here you see where the router's IP address is designated as 192.168.1.1, as you see there. But what matters down here is the use router as DHCP server. That has to be on your router. If it isn't on, turn it on. But by default, it is on. And here you'll see that it's set to a range of 192.168.1, sorry, 192.168.1.2, and then the ending IP address range is 254. What that means is that the DHCP server will be assigning IP addresses, which are, there's a unique one for every device on your network from that range. The problem with that is that we need to assign a static IP address to this router, and that means that there's no way that the DHCP server can give out the same IP address as what you assign to this. Okay, so the way we stop that from ever happening is by changing this number over here, and we're going to change it to let's say 20. Okay, basically that means that it will, when the DHCP server starts assigning IP addresses for all the devices on your network, it will start at 20, and then basically go all the way up to 254. And that means that everything between 192.168.1.1 and 20 is free for us to assign whatever we want to. So I'm leaving it there. You can change that number to whatever, a lower number if you wish, but make sure you leave enough so that you can assign at least one. Okay, so here we go. Here we're going to hit apply. We'll wait for this to finish, and I'll show you next. Let's go over here. This is the Netgear router, the old interface for your Netgear router, and we'll go to LAN setup here. It's a little easier actually. And you'll see here again that DHCP server is on by default, and that again that it's 2. So again, I would say, set it to 10 or 20. That's fine. And then hit apply, and it'll do the same thing as we did over here. Okay. Next, I'm going to show you the TP-Links interface for this same thing. Here TP-Link has just a menu on the left, and DHCP is right there. This shows you that it's enabled again by default, but this one has a different range. It goes from 192.168.0.100 to 192.168.0.199. So if you're using a TP-Link as your main router, then basically you don't have to worry, because you can assign an IP address that's lower than 100 to this router and you'll be fine. Okay, but again, I'll show you how to handle different IP addresses in the next slide. So all right, let's go back to our Netgear router, and let's try this again here. It seems to have, okay, disconnected me here. Let me reconnect to it. There we go, and we'll take a look and see if my setting took. Try again. There we go, and you see here it's set to 20. So we're good here. We're done with the main router. And that's the only configuration you need to do on the main router. That is to configure DHCP, so that there's a little space for you to put some IP addresses that you're going to hard code to your routers. So here we're going to hit log out, and we're going to close this. Actually, we'll just minimize it. And now we're going to go to our next slide. And so we've got now the main router. We know that its IP address is 192.168.1.1. And here are the rules for that, okay? If you've got a different number other than 192.168.1.1, then basically whatever you have will be either 192.168.1.1 or .0.1 as you saw there on the TP-Link router, or maybe it'll be 2.1. What, you know, basically this third octet is what they call it, will be different. Whatever that number is, you know, basically it's good. I'm going to represent it here as being X in the number sequence. So if the number is 1, then you place a 1 where the X is here. And if the number, and you will also do the same thing on the secondary router where X is. So this would be 192.168.1.2. And as you can see, I already labeled my two routers correctly. Again, if yours was 0 on the primary, then the secondary here would be 0 as well. Okay. So next thing we need to do is actually set the IP address for the secondary router. And in order to do that, we got to plug it in to the computer you're working with. In my case, it's a laptop, but if you got a PC, you know, you're going to plug it into that PC and go from there. Now, if you don't have a PC or you don't have a way to plug in this router into your device that you're configuring it with, well, I guess you could log into it through wireless. But I'm doing it through a LAN connection. I'm going to show you how that physically looks when I do it. Okay. Then we'll set the IP address. Okay. Here we have the TP-Link, the secondary router we're going to be using, the WR841N, and we're going to connect the patch cord to one of these ports. Use any one you want. I'll use number 1, and basically go like that, and plug the other end into our laptop or computer that we're using into the LAN port on it, like so. And then we're going to power that router up, hitting the power button. Again, this is the same procedure no matter what router you're using here, and that doesn't have to be the TP-Link. Okay, so I'm just going to power it up, and then next we're going to go into the laptop. One thing you may want to do, and I'm going to do, is I'm going to put a little piece of black tape over the WAN port. That's the blue port on this one, or the internet port, whatever they call it on your router. And I'm just going to put a piece of black tape over that because we'll never use that again if we're using this as a secondary router the way I'm showing you. And we don't want people plugging stuff in there if it's not going to work. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape over it like that so we don't use it again. And we're only going to use the yellow or the LAN ports, not the WAN or internet port. So I'll just put that tape there to stop anybody from plugging anything in there. Okay. Oh, there. I guess it helps if you plug that in correctly into the laptop like that. So now we got our router plugged into our laptop, and basically at this point we need to find out what IP address our secondary router is on, and that's fairly basic. It should be just like finding the primary router's IP address. So right click the network icon at the bottom right here, hit open network and sharing. Okay, so here we are on that. Then we're going to go to change adapter settings here on the left, and we're hooked up through Ethernet. So right click that and choose status and then details. Then you see down here where it says 192.168.0.1 on default gateway, DHCP server, and DNS server. That's the IP address that is connected to the LAN port currently. So, sorry, that's the IP address of the router that's connected to the LAN port currently. So now we know what IP address to use. So close this up. Open up a browser window here. I'm using Chrome. You use what you wish to use. It doesn't really matter. Here we're going to type in 192.168.0.1, which is the IP of the TP-Link router, as you can see here on the screen. So success. Let's type in the default password, and the default password for the TP-Link routers is admin, and the the default username is admin. The password is also admin. So admin, all lowercase. Now, if you have a different router from TP-Link or Netgear, and you don't know what its password is, well, Google your router and default password, and you're more than likely going to get a result as to what your default password for your router is. Otherwise, you'll need to find out what username and password you changed it to, or maybe just reset the router. But understand, when you reset the router, you lose all the settings for your router and you need to reconfigure it, okay? But it will reboot with the default password and username activated at that point. How do you reset your router? Well, Google that as well. They'll tell you the instructions. Here, we're just going to hit admin and go in. There we go, much better. Now you can see that this router is in its default state because I reset it myself. It's saying quick setup, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to hit exit on that. And now we're at the status page. The first thing you want to do on this router is disable the DHCP server on this router, because you don't want two DHCP servers on a single segment. It just wreaks havoc. We're going to use the DHCP server from the primary or the master router, and you know, as we set it up there, you saw it was on. So here we're going to go to DHCP first, and we're going to click on disable and then hit save. And it says note, DHCP config will not take effect until this device reboots. Okay. And then here you get the option to reboot the device, so let's do that. And reboot, yes. And we'll wait for this thing to reboot, and then after that, after it reboots, we're going to set the IP address on this router to the 192.168.1.2 that we saw in that first diagram, and I'll show you that here. This thing here. So what we're going to do is go here, as we've determined the IP address for the master or for the main. The secondary is going to be this 192.168.1.2. Again, this picture explains how to set yours if your main router has a different IP address, like 192.168.0.1. Then this would be .0.2 here on this side. So at this point, we should have rebooted. Let's take a look at what we got going on. Yep, back to the admin page. So here we're going to go type in admin. Sorry, back to the router login page. You should really change these numbers, the username and password for your router. You should not leave the default username and password on the router. It just makes it too easy to hack. Okay, so we're back in. Next thing we need to do is go to network over here and change its IP address. Okay, now here under network, I landed on WAN, but where you want to go is to LAN, and under LAN you'll see the IP address for the router. Okay, and in this case it's 192.168.0.1. We know that. Here we're going to change this to 192.168.1.2. Now once we do this, it will change the login page for the router to that IP address, the 192.168.1.2. So after we've done this, we no longer will have access to this router anymore, but that's okay. It'll just be, you know, as long as we set it, then we can continue on from here and connect it to the other router. And after we connect it to the other router, we'll have access to it again. So here we're going to hit save. Notification of the LAN settings will result in rebooting the device. Okay, okay. All right, so now it's rebooting. When it's done rebooting, we should get a blank page. We shouldn't be able to get back into it because our IP address will be different than its IP address. It'll be on what they call a different segment. So basically, that's network talk for another time zone, basically. So let's just change the adapter and go here and see where we are currently, right? And you see that we're on the 192.168.0.100 IP, and that is still on this 192.168.0.1 IP. Now that IP address, just to, you know, I'm trying not to be too technical, was given to us by this router. But once you turn the DHCP off, it will not give you a new IP address. So, you know, here it says if it does not refresh automatically, click refresh on the top of your browser. Well, if I do that, nothing will happen because we won't be able to get to that router anymore. Okay, we changed the IP address, and even if you put it in here, 1.2, which is where that router is now, you're not going to get to it because your network configuration is not correct. But don't worry about that. At this point, you've done what you needed to do that router. We're going to disconnect it from the laptop, and now we're going to connect it to the main router. So I'll show you that next. So the next step is connecting the two routers, and as I showed before, I've got the patch cable or my LAN cable plugged into the number 1 port on this TP-Link router, which is their secondary. It can be plugged into any of the ports. It's not an issue. And then we go from there into our primary router, which already is connected to the internet and is powered on. And you can plug that one into any free port you have on the back of that. I'll choose number 1. And so it's 1-to-1, but it doesn't matter. It can be any one of the orange ports on this one, as well as any one of the orange ports on this one as well. Not the WAN port. That's why I put the piece of tape over it there, as you can see. So at this point, the two routers are connected and they're ready to go. They're actually talking to each other, and this one here is actually already acting as the secondary router to the primary router because it's already configured correctly. Now, we do need to configure the wireless or the Wi-Fi in the secondary just to make sure that it doesn't clash with the primary, and I'll explain that while I'm doing it. But also, these patch cables I'm using are Cat5e. Now, these are only 100 megabit per second routers, so they're not super fast, but most routers today are 1 gigabit routers, and you want to be using a Cat5e cable for that, and get the most speed and least amount of what they call collisions, and basically optimize everything. So in networking, you're only as fast as your slowest component. If you got a cheap wire, a Cat5 wire that is not helping your speed, it's going to slow down great equipment to the Cat5 category wire. So again, if you don't know what kind of wire you have, just check. Usually it's printed right on it. This one is printed on it. It says Cat5e right on it, and so does this black one as well. So usually if it's Cat5e or Cat6, it'll be written on it. If it's not written on it, then you basically have Cat5. So at this point, oh, one more thing too, the patch cable between the two routers can be as long as 100 meters. I don't know what that's in feet. I think about 385 feet. But regardless, look at the specifications for your cable and see what the maximum length can be. And that's the beauty about this, is that you can have quite a long cable between the two routers and it'll talk just fine. So now they're connected. You saw they're connected. And now what I'm going to do is connect wirelessly to this router and then go from that one to this one to configure the Wi-Fi on it. And then at that point, it'll be working as a secondary router to your primary router. One more thing too, I may make a video. You can actually attach a third router, a fourth router, and a fifth router to this chain and make, spread them out. So you could have one on every corner of your house with this method. Okay, so there is possibility of doing that. I may do a video on that in the future, showing how that is actually configured. All right, we've got everything connected, and actually it should be live at this point. I've connected to my wireless, my main router, my primary router. This is Netgear 73 Wi-Fi connection. So at this point, this is the configuration I got going on, and this is now totally active. The secondary router should be sharing out the internet from the primary router to everything it connects to. So let's go see how this all works. I minimize this thing here. There we go. And open up a browser window. We're going to go to 192, and as you saw here in this picture, 192.168 is the primary IP address for the primary router. So we're going to go there. 192.168.1.1. Enter. Bingo. We get a prompt to log in. This is good. It is admin and lowercase, and this is the default for the Netgear. So password is the password. Please change that if you have it active in yours. Okay, so we get the genie here, and obviously everything here is working. We're going to go here to the well, that's how you get to the first one. We should also be able to route through this router into the second router, and at this point I'm just going to open up a new tab, show you how that happens. 192.168.1.2. That's the IP address of the second router. There it is. And we're going to log into it with the default passwords, admin. Boom. So access to both routers working at the same time. Perfect. Okay. next thing you want to do, and this is basically a tweak and a wireless, what do you call it, optimization. Let's go to the wireless settings on these things. And you may be tempted to use the same SSID and the same password on both routers. Please don't do that. I'll tell you why. Because if there's any overlap between the two routers, and whatever device you're trying to connect to both devices, you will either choose one or the other, but it will not choose the strongest signal. It will choose the signal that answers first. So it's not a matter of strength or power or speed. It is a matter of speed. It's a matter of which router answers the call first. So don't name them both the same thing. As you can see here, the SSID or the network ID for the wireless on the Netgear is Netgear 73. So you shouldn't be naming your TP-Link with the same SSID, because it's just going to cause confusion. Okay, so let's go over here to the TP-Link, go to its wireless setting, and you see that mine is something totally different. TP-Link D_D6C0. Now you can name them whatever you want. Just change the SSID or the wireless network name here, and then save those settings. Okay, that's my first recommendation. Don't use the same SSID. You can use the same password for both of them. That's fine. But don't use the same SSID. It just doesn't work well. Number one. Number two, if you did use the same SSID for both routers, you'd never know which router you're actually connected to. Okay? You could be connected to the furthest one away from you instead of the one right in front of you. Okay? So by changing the SSID, you'll always know which Wi-Fi network you're connected to. And hopefully you know which one is which. Now, second thing to do on these things. Notice here where it says channel auto. That means it's going to go anywhere, right? Don't do that. On BG and N networks, there's only 3 channels that don't overlap each other, and you don't want the channels to overlap, because when they do, they actually interfere with each other. Okay, it's very technical, but just trust me on this. Channel 1, 6, and 11 are the only 3 you should be using. So set one for one and then set the other for the other. So I'm going to set my TP-Link router to channel 11, and as far as away as I can get on the other one, I'm going to choose channel 1. Okay, so let's just click save on that. Let it save, and let's go over here to my Netgear, and again look at the channel auto. We're going to change that to channel 1. So then we're going to hit apply. There are ways to optimize Wi-Fi even further, but we're not going into that here. I just wanted you to make sure that if you set these things up close to each other or within talking distance or Wi-Fi distance of each other, that they don't actually interfere with each other. And they won't if they're on channel 1, 6, or 11. You can play with the channels, but just make sure you choose one of those 3 channels. Okay, so it looks like the Netgear is rebooting, so we'll wait for that. The TP-Link is already saved its settings. Let's go look at wireless security. Yeah, that's because the Netgear is actually rebooting at this point. We'll wait here. And once the Netgear, and okay, well, here's another thing too. I've set both SSIDs up here, so both networks. So I should be able to go to TP-Link here, to DC60, and connect to that network, which is the secondary network. You call it what you wish. And of course, it's going to ask me for a password, but let's see what the actual password we're using here is. Well, we got to be able to get to it first, right? Okay, we'll wait here. Let's get back on. That's the issue. I was connected through wireless. Let's connect back onto wireless again. When it reboots, it kicks me off. So just refresh this page. Boom, it's running again, and I should have access to this router now as well. Boom. So here we go, back to wireless. Let's look at the wireless security. I got to get the wireless password here, and trust me, it won't be this on mine for more than the next 2 minutes. So I'm just going to copy it here, as you can see, and use WPA, WPA2. What they recommend. This is good. So I'm just going to Control C that, go back over here, and connect to my TP-Link. Right here, drop that password in there. There we go. Next. And the beautiful thing about this actual configuration of routers is that both routers have access to everything on the network. So if you're connected to the secondary or the primary, you got access to everything that the primary has, and whatever the secondary is connected to the primary, if you're connected to the primary, the primary has access to the secondary just as well. And that's a really nice thing. So right now I'm logged into the TP-Link router, and if I wanted to open a web page to go surfing, I obviously can. We see that Google is up and running. We'll go to the web store here. Again, on the net, on the secondary, right? And if we go to the Netgear, we'll just click and connect on that. And we'll see that we're actually on there as well. So let's go here. There we go. Are we connected? Let's see. Yeah, connected, secured, so we're good. And at this point, we should be able to go here, go where we want. See, pops up, no problem. Let's go back again. So, and again, still have access to everything on this router, right? Now, this is always going to be there. WAN port is unplugged because it is unplugged. We never want to plug the WAN port in there anyway. So, back to status on that. Back to this router. We see that status is good. We're on the internet. There's our SSID, what we're connected to. And notice here that I'm not connected through Wi-Fi to the TP-Link right now. I'm connected to the Netgear, and I have access to everything. It's not an issue. Okay? So that's how you connect two routers together to share the internet. And as I said, I may make a video on how you can cascade another router off the secondary and so on and so forth to make this even a bigger chain. I'll have to get a third router to show you with, and I think I have access to one somewhere. And you know, if you're interested in that video, comment below, or if you have any comments at all, just put them in the video description below. Sorry, in the comment section below. I will be putting links to both these routers and to other routers I use. I like TP-Link routers a lot, and I primarily now use just those because they're just beautiful and they're a good value. And I'll put links to those in the video description below. Okay, that's it for my video. If you liked this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a big favor and click on the like button here in the bottom right hand corner and give me a thumbs up. It helps my channel, it helps my video, and I greatly appreciate it. Somewhere here on the screen, you will also see a picture of me. That picture is a subscription link. Just click on that, and then you will be subscribed to my channel. And you'll notice as you're clicking on that there's a little bell icon next to it. If you click the bell icon, then you'll be notified every time I put a new video up, and then you can watch it at your own leisure. Okay, just like always, I want to thank you all for watching and for your time.